Consider this, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome once again to the University of Nebraska at Omaha. When I was a student here, what some people will say was a million years ago, but really wasn't more than 3 decades or so, there was a lot of talk about, well, we were going through the feminist movement and equal pay for equal work, and major strides were made early on after that, but maybe not so many in the last several years. My guests this week are very concerned about equal pay for women, and they sort of are part of a coalition that this year is really bringing a lot of different forces to bear to bring this to the public. Diane Seaman-Logier is with the Women's Fund of Greater Omaha. She sort of was the point person on putting some research together that we're going to talk about today that the Women's Fund is unveiling this week. And Melanie Morrissey Clark is the editor of today's Omaha Woman magazine, it was published by the Women's Fund, and it's sort of going through a renaissance. It's kind of a neat magazine here in Omaha. And Mary Fraser Mines is with the Omaha Business and Professional Women. That organization nationally has taken on as one of its projects the public awareness of the equal pay issue. Okay, all that said, we have coming up a major collaboration, putting a lot of eggs in one basket, Diane. So you have traditionally done research on women and their women's issues, but
Absolutely.
This year it's going to be a little different in how it's presented.
Yeah, in a number of ways. This year, for the first time, we had the magazine available as a way to present the material. You may recall 10 years ago, we did this in a public briefing. You happened to be the moderator, which you did an excellent job with. The material will also be highlighted to some extent at the Equal Pay Luncheon that's coming up in
Tuesday, April 20th.
April 20th.
Great.
So we'll get to all these different facets, but I think the fact that the Women's Fund has 10 years later taken the newest census data and compared it with that of 1990, and we've made some strides in the last 30 years, but things aren't really cooking so much for women in the last 10 years here.
Well, that's absolutely true. There are a number of areas where things have improved significantly, but there are a number of issues out there yet that impact women's lives, important to all of us, important to our children and the next generations. And hopefully the Women's Fund will be around in 10 years to do the next report.
Let me ask you all, and feel free to just, pipe in when you feel comfortable. It is not simply an issue of women getting equal pay to men in same jobs. It's a socioeconomic issue that affects, as you said, future generations, families, the whole future of our aging population, which is largely women. I mean, they tend to live longer, and how they are going to fare because of those years of pay or lack of it. And I mean, it's not just saying, well, gee, wouldn't it be nice if women got the same as men, which it would. But it's really a complex socioeconomic issue, is it not?
Yes, I think the best illustration of that is in the research. Diane highlights the fact that over a lifetime, when women just are making about 73 cents for every dollar a man makes, that adds up to about $2 million difference between men and women.
Well, we're talking about real money now.
Right.
But we have a lot of changing demographics that also feed into this. I noticed one of the things that you highlight in your research, and I guess maybe because I'm getting older and not younger, is the feminization of the elderly. We always have known that we've got more women living longer. I mean, there's always those old ladies around and not so much of the older men. I mean, the good news is we live longer. The bad news is sometimes we can't afford to live longer.
Absolutely. In the report you read, Nebraska women tend to live approximately 7 to 8 years longer than Nebraska men, which none of us would vote to have that any other way, if we're women at least. But there's a downside to living for a very long time too. If you have not worked in paid employment, then you have not developed a personal savings plan, you haven't paid into Social Security, you don't have your own pension plan. Those are all major factors for the economic well-being of older women. If you have worked outside the home, under the best of circumstances, on average, you've earned 73 or 74 cents to the dollar of men in the Omaha area. And if you have worked out of the home, you, in all likelihood, there's a high percentage of women who have either taken time out of their working life in order to raise family, raise children, to tend to elderly dependent family members, or to simply put in the additional 40% of time that women on average dedicate to taking care of the family and taking care of the home. Women opt for lower paying jobs that are sometimes less stressful, more flexible, don't have the same kind of travel
I'll take the
requirements and
flexibility
things.
because all these people are depending on me. That puts me at a competitive disadvantage
Exactly.
in terms of the pay. Your organization, the Business Professional Women nationally, I'm sure, are looking at that end of the spectrum, as well as, the younger people that are saying, I sure hope to earn
Absolutely.
what men earn.
It affects women in retirement, and it affects the pension, as Diane said, and it affects their ability to draw down Social Security. So it increases the number of women in poverty, which is already going up. So the elderly women are the largest group of people in poverty, elderly women.
And if fortunately or unfortunately in my job, I have been able to witness a lot of life in Omaha and Nebraska, and that is probably one of the there are many sad things, there are many good things, but one of the saddest things is to see women that have worked hard, either taking care of their family or having a job, or both, and not being able to, barely survive financially. And as a taxpayer, hey ho, even if you're not sympathetic to women, you should say, with the kind of numbers in the elderly age brackets that are coming up and the draw on Social Security and prescription drugs and all that, as a taxpayer, you would want women to be able to support themselves as best they could.
Absolutely, and just the demographics of our country, let alone our local area, put a great deal of pressure on that. We had to go back and check some of the age statistics because it is something like the women aged 45 to 54 will have increased 55% in the last 10 years, the numbers of women in that age category. It's unbelievable. Melanie called me and said, "Are you sure this is right? Would you please check again?" It is right. It's a part of the baby boom generation. And what's happening is that younger women are having fewer children, which probably improves their chances at economic self-sufficiency in the future. However, it creates fewer people to put those dollars away for Social Security to support all of us as we get a little older. So there are a number of really important issues there, some related to individuals and some systemic.
But there's reason for everyone to be concerned, is the point I think to be made,
Absolutely.
because it's going to affect you one way or the other, even if you're a man.
Well, it affects families because women don't make as much, and so they're not able to buy as many groceries or buy the prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs. So it affects our buying power as families, not just women, but women as a part of a family.
Let's talk about the other end of the spectrum. Let's talk about our young women. We have a lot of them that are don't have the earning capacity even of maybe some years ago, because we have a larger number that aren't graduating from high school. We have a larger number that are having children, without a father or a second person around to help with the income. We have welfare laws that have changed that, from a taxpayer's point of view, I think that they've been a good thing, and maybe on paper they're good, but they don't allow the education and job training that maybe is necessary for any woman or any person to move up in the salary brackets.
Yeah.
And women with children actually make less than 73 cents for every man's dollar.
That's right.
I can't remember what it was. It's 65 cents maybe. So it goes down if you have children in the home.
And then if you have less education, you can't even do the things that sometimes you can do when you have a better education and a better job, is you can hire the babysitters or have a little more flexibility that money, a little more money often gives a single parent or any parent.
And if you have a low-paying job, poor education, maybe 2 part-time jobs because you can't get a full-time job with benefits. You have 2 part-time jobs that don't pay well, provide few, if any, benefits. You can't afford childcare. You can't afford the time or the money for additional education. And so to that extent, women who are in that situation are just kind of stuck there until their kids get old enough so they're in school and can maybe be occupied with other activities. It's a very depressing, I think, and helpless sense for many, many women.
And with the lower number of benefits offered in jobs that have moved to part-time, just under that full-time position, and women might be working 2 of those, then health can go down. Many of our children in poverty are insured by Medicaid in this state, so that's good news. But their health might go down, and they may not be able to get the care they need for either physical or mental situations, which then can put them in a downward spiral, let alone barely holding their own. I mean, it's just really complicated.
It is.
What when you're looking at this research, what you said what blew you away was, but what are some of the things that you think, with all the things that we have, the awakening that our country's had about the value of women, what still just slays you? Anybody?
I'm slain, and my political proclivities may show up here. I believe that efforts to reform welfare are critical. Women need help to get off of welfare and to break that chain, to provide a better life for their children. No one would argue about that. But the focus of promoting marriage as a way to end poverty is, in my mind, an absolute fallacy.
They've actually taken money away from the kinds of things that would support and educate women to the men, the non-custodial parent, which is mostly males, in this hopes that they will get job training and have more money and then will pay child support. But those things, and maybe even marry these women, because there's a very pro-marriage. I mean, I think marriage is good, but one isn't a logical consequence always from the other.
No, it's not. To take money away from a custodial parent program in particular, to dedicate it to non-custodial parent programs, which might be valuable programs. There may be a need for them.
Well, everybody needs job training and education.
Absolutely, but it makes no sense to do that. You put the mother and the children at significantly greater risk by doing that. It's just not a worthwhile way to do that. Promoting marriage as a way to end poverty is ridiculous. 50% of all first marriages end in divorce. Higher percentage of second and third marriages end in divorce. So marriage is not the panacea for ending poverty for anyone. It's sort of an amazing approach in my mind. Getting women back to work is a very important and worthwhile thing to do, but as we already said, they tend to go into poor paying jobs with very few benefits. So we're moving from the welfare roles to the roles of the working poor is not a huge step in getting women and children off poverty.
Education, though, is one of the main factors that helps women get into higher paying jobs. But even with education, women are still paid less than men with a less education. So a college educated woman is paid less than a man with a high school education. And so by cutting the education programs for women who are on welfare, they're really not going for getting women off of poverty.
In fact, they could even be moving down in terms of the long-term effect of the effect it will have on their children, in terms of their education, because we know that tends to skew that parents with certain levels of education, their children would, on average, would be at least that and possibly more. So I mean, it creates all kinds of problems. One of the things that was interesting to me is that as I mentioned earlier, the fact that we are having our number of single moms that are making much less money when they do have to support the kids is frightening, and also the statistics about fewer of them getting high school diplomas. That tends to show me, and I'm making a cursory observation, maybe more in depth wouldn't be fair, is that we are losing a little ground in our women and their education. We have more getting master's degrees and things. On that end, that's good, but on this end, you might be moving down a little bit.
You're absolutely right. And it is good that we have more women getting master's degrees and bachelor's degrees and other graduate degrees. That bodes well for the future of those women. But on the other end of the spectrum, not graduating from high school really virtually sentences women and their children to very, very low paying, low benefit positions that keeps them in a very, very economic crisis situation.
Well, kind of a stranglehold.
Yeah.
I mean, you have less flexibility, less moving. Even if you want to move right to left as opposed to up, you have fewer choices. The other thing that strikes me is that with our economy being what it is, and you know, in a state of flux, and we hear about job training, and you're going to change careers 3 and 4 times. If you're not even trained for one career, I mean, this is kind of scary. I mean, I'm at the age where I'm wondering if I should retrain myself to do something else, just because of things change and the makeup of my workforce is changing. I can't even. At least I have options.
That's right. That's right.
So it's a little scary.
Yeah, we really have the luxury of looking at additional job training changes, that kind of thing. Almost to the extent of, I'm kind of tired of doing this, I'd like to try something new. If you're looking at working at the dry cleaners as a step up from working at McDonald's or Burger King, you're in a whole different economic situation.
Yeah. We do want to mention some of the things that are happening in conjunction with this, and you'll be seeing on your screen the Women's Fund website, and you can go to that website and find the research if you want to see some of the data, and it's very well illustrated in terms of charts and graphs, so a lot of audiovisual aids there. But I want to tell people that so they can find it. You also are going to want other people to see this, primarily the people that have companies, and you're taking it to the people and to the CEOs.
Right.
Let's talk about the CEOs first. Who wants to take that?
I will. We are mailing the report within the magazine to the top 100 CEOs, the top 100 companies based on employment, how many people they employ, so that they will get it directly in their offices. And we're asking them to look at their companies and see if men and women are being paid equally.
Do kind of an
For
audit.
equal jobs, right.
This is the magazine that's just hot off the presses that refers to the research. It also sort of puts a personal face on the things that you're talking about, the sort of hallmark divisions and trends that you were looking at. It's a very excellent report in terms of readability and in terms of how the kinds of things it pulls in, and it's an easy read. I mean, doesn't make you crazy reading it. Another thing we want to talk about is the fact that this takes it to the people and to the women and to the men. How easily accessible is this magazine to the public?
We distribute 25,000 copies all over the city, grocery stores, restaurants.
So it's out there.
It's
if you're out and
there,
about,
right.
look at it's today's Omaha Woman. It has this lovely lady and a few other women on the cover. And
It's free.
So look for it, because it's accessible to you by web or in the magazine. Another thing that's going on is that the business and professional women have always had sort of an equal pay day. And so you're presenting this research at their equal pay luncheon. If you want to talk about that a little bit and sort of the tradition that you have.
Omaha Business and Professional Women is joining with 10 other organizations to do an equal pay luncheon, and we will hear the facts from Deborah Keating. Diane has presented this one other time, and we'll have Deborah Keating present facts this time. And then Holly Murphy Barstow will talk about how to be your own best negotiator. Because a lot of times if women apply for a job, they may not ask for a higher salary. A man applying for the same job would. He may or may not get it, but he would ask for more money. So we need to start out by valuing ourselves and asking for more money when we start. And we may not get it, but at least we start by saying to an employer, we would like a higher salary. And then also negotiating for benefits and promotions is part of what we will hear from Holly. Then we will have a workshop, which we're really excited about that, with Right Management Consultants for young women and any women of any age actually, and students, to learn how to negotiate. We'll have a successful negotiating skills workshop, and then they will be able to practice in a safe environment with somebody about how to ask for a pay raise or an initial salary or benefit. So it will be a great day.
Now this show airs in various parts of the state, various times, but so this luncheon comes right about in the middle of the airing cycle of this show, which is Tuesday, the 20th of April. And is your luncheon and your sessions filled up for those that get to see it early on in this cycle?
The luncheon's not quite filled up. The workshop is filling up fast. So if people are interested, they can make a reservation at Omaha OBPW membership at yahoo.com.
Okay.
OBPW membership.
We'll try to
at
make that
yahoo.com.
readily available to people. It's at the College of St. Mary
Yes.
in Omaha. All in all, with all that you've looked at on this, all you know about the equal pay issue, where do we go from here? Obviously, we need to learn to speak up for ourselves, negotiate. But where do we go as a group of people, men, women, who realize this is good overall for our economy, for society?
I'll start that, and maybe you
Go on
two
down
can
the road,
jump in.
whatever.
I think first and foremost, we get as women as much education as we can possibly get. We encourage our daughters and our granddaughters and our nieces to get as much education as they possibly can. Education is key to economic self-sufficiency. There's absolutely no question about that. The second thing is that as parents, and again adults influencing young girls and young women, we encourage them to aspire to higher heights than we have traditionally done. Let's say you have a daughter or a niece who likes science and math a lot. She is very likely to be encouraged to become a nurse. Nursing is a wonderful profession. It's a great job, and nurses earn about 1/3 of what doctors earn. Now, that's not to say that
And
everyone...
even men who become nurses earn more than women become
That's
nurses.
right. Men who become nurses earn more than women who become nurses. That's not to say that everyone who could become a nurse would want to become a doctor, would be capable of becoming a doctor, would want to live that life. But don't foreclose that possibility
Don't
at the
limit
start.
them in the way you
Absolutely.
chit-chat about their future.
Absolutely.
On the issue of education, get it where you can, we need to also, I think, try to hope that our businesses and things use education benefits
Yes.
more, so that women can take advantage, especially if they have a lot of women in their employ.
And then also in the research on the feminization of the elderly, we talk about women of all ages starting early to learn how to invest their money in their own names and make sure that they are doing the things they can to provide for themselves and not just rely on their husbands if they're married or someone else to take care of them.
It's amazing just not having your credit in your, not that you should go out and get a lot of credit cards, but not having things in your own name, how that can affect you if you are become divorced, which 50% of people do at least once, or your spouse dies, or some serious situation in the home. Mary?
I think we can research the wages in our own field. We've talked a lot about women in the poverty area, but this wage gap affects women in all professions except bartenders and amusement park operators. And so it affects all of us. And so research the salaries in your own field and check that out. Ask for what you are worth. And there's 2 bills in the Congress that could be helpful, the Fair Pay Act and the Paycheck Fairness Act. And both of those build upon the Equal Pay Act of 1963 and add some more protections and add more studies about the information. We could pass a law on the state level in Nebraska. Senator Shelley Keel introduced it several years ago, and we
When she
didn't
was
move
in the
that forward.
unicameral.
Over 20 states have introduced fair pay legislation in their state unicameral or state legislatures. We could do that in our unicameral.
Another thing we could do is get more women to run for office and win, because we're actually
Yes.
losing a little ground in that area. Just one of the asides mentioned in this report. Now, I'm not, saying we should take over the world or anything, but I think since we run a lot of it, meaning the homes and families, that we certainly should pay more attention to our futures and that of our children. We've just got a couple of minutes left, so I want you to give that one last boost to either your event or what you would want to get across to people in terms of, we're just touching the top, but in terms of getting people to go the next step. Obviously, read the report.
I would like to encourage all companies to do the employer audit. The Department of Labor has an employer audit on their website. It's referenced in the report, and it's easy to do, and it looks at inadvertent salary issues that could have developed in a company over the time. So I would encourage all of them to use that and use this report.
There was an interesting thing in the report, and it said that Nebraska women rank second nationally in participation in the workforce.
Yes.
That means we have a lot of working women and a lot of working women hours in this state. And we are losing resources. We worry about our state coffers. We worry about all kinds of things, our economy here, but it was brought up earlier. What women make are going to generate taxes, sales tax, activity. That money's going to turn over, 7 times? I mean, so this is a real deal for everybody, even if you're not sort of empathetic to women. I mean, this is a societal thing.
That's absolutely true. And Carol, in that same report, in which women were second in the numbers of women in the workforce, proportion of women in the workforce, we were 50th in the proportion of women in the managerial and professional categories.
That was my next
which
thing.
is one of the very higher paying categories of occupation.
That means we're at the bottom.
There's only 51.
Yeah. Well, I guess 51. That is really scary for the future of a state that is aging, probably more rapidly. The large number of elderly we have and will have in this state. I mean, you mix all these things up, and the younger people to support that, and women supporting it with better salaries. This is something that really talks about our future in this state and in this city. Well, I want to thank you so much. The Women's Fund has been researching and working with a number of projects for women and young women, very young women, for a long time, and the business of professional women. And I do just briefly want to mention some of the sponsors of this luncheon, the people that have come together. It's ICANN Inc., Nebraska Commission on the Status of Women, Omaha chapter of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Utah Holly Girls Village, Women's Fund of Greater Omaha, and the YWCA, as well as the Girl Scouts and American Association of University Women. I hope I didn't miss anybody, but these are people, talk to them for guidance or for input. These are people that are on top of it. Thank you so much. Diane Seaman-Logier. Now I always get the Morrissey in the wrong place. Melanie Morrissey Clark and Mary Fraser Mines. These are all 3 named women. So that's kind of cool. Thank you so much for coming today, and thank you for joining us. Go to the Women's Fund site. It's on our website. If you want to see this research, it's worth your time. Thank you for joining us.
To view this edition of Consider This or past programs, visit our website at unotv.unomaha.edu. For comments or questions, call 402-554-2516 during regular business hours. Consider This is a production of UNO Television.